Good evening, everybody, and thank you for attending tonight's meeting on the Highland Reservoir Slope Stability Project. It is really wonderful to see that there is so much interest in the project, and we really do appreciate you spending the evening with us to learn about the project and to spend some time talking through questions and the concerns that you may have. My name is Rebecca Zito. I'm the Senior Manager of Public Affairs with Pittsburgh Water, and there has been many people who have helped to produce tonight's meeting and are closely involved with the project. Before I introduce them, I do just want to flag that we are recording tonight's meeting and that the recording will be made available for you to go back to, refer to, and we will share that out with others who may not have been able to join us tonight. So, as I mentioned, there are a lot of people who have helped to make tonight's meeting possible and who are part of this project. And so those include the Pittsburgh Water engineering staff, as well as the consultants who are working on the design of the project. That includes Barry King, who is our Director of Engineering and Construction for our water program, Darby Neidig, who is the Senior Group Manager of Water Projects, and Zach Rinker, who is the Engineering Project Manager. He is managing this project, and you will hear from him later tonight. Additionally, Councilwoman Deb Gross, if she's not already here, will be joining us a little later this evening, and Stephanie Walsh, who is very active within the Highland Park community. She was the former president of the Highland Park Community Council and is now working to establish the Friends of Highland Park organization that is specifically focused on the park itself. Additionally, we have many representatives from the city of Pittsburgh who we have been working with us. Corey Buckner, who is the supervisor of community affairs with the mayor's office, is here this evening, as is Lisa Chaffee, the director of city forestry, and Michael Kelly, who is her deputy. We have been engaging very closely with the forestry division as well as the Department of Public Works throughout this project. The Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy, as well as representatives from the Pittsburgh Zoo, are also partners in this project who we have been working closely with as well. At this point, before we get into the agenda and tonight's presentation, I would like to invite Stephanie Walsh and Councilwoman Gross to say a few words to just welcome everybody and to share their intentions this evening. Stephanie, would you like to get started? I'm not sure if the councilwoman has joined yet.
Sure. Thanks so much, Rebecca. And it's great to see so many people here. Just shows how much our park is loved and how invested people are. So thank you to everyone for coming out tonight. As Rebecca mentioned, I'm here as a member of the Highland Park Community Council and its Parks Committee. Those of you who are familiar with the HPCC know that we often serve as an advocate for the park and for park users since it's right here in our backyard. But the park is a regional asset and it draws people from communities throughout the city and the county, which is something we frequently remind the city and other entities that work in the park about. This is, I believe, the city park that has the most diverse group of users. Like many of you, I'm a park user. I walk my dog there. I enjoy the trails and the peace and quiet. But that's just like one type of park use that our park sees, right? Like we have more facilities and more infrastructure and uses really than any other city park, right? We have a pool, we have a ball field, we have multiple tennis courts, basketball courts, we have picnic pavilions, playgrounds, we have an off-leash dog park, exercise equipment, community gardens. The park hosts jazz concerts and yoga classes and movies and fundraisers. It's home to a zoo. It's home to like spectacular public art. And it's also houses very significant amount of the city's drinking water infrastructure. And that's a lot for not a very big space. And so it's like a lot of competing needs that really need to be balanced. And our organization learned about this project about a year ago. And with Councilwoman Gross's office, we, have met with Pittsburgh Water and the Division of Forestry and Department of Public Works, and really encouraged Pittsburgh Water to engage the public so that people could understand what's going on and ask questions and provide input into the future of our park. And, we're very thankful to everyone at Pittsburgh Water. I've been in lots of meetings with all these folks for being so responsive to these requests. They're organizing this information session and then a landscaping charrette later this month that hopefully many of you can attend. Before we begin, I just want to remind attendees and presenters alike that everyone here is part of this wonderful community of park users and park caretakers. And as such, I hope that when making comments or asking questions or answering questions, that everyone will treat each other with respect. Like, everyone here is trying to do the right thing. Pittsburgh Water is really doing its best to balance the demands of maintaining this critical water infrastructure with being a good tenant within our city park. City forestry, they are here. They take their role as stewards of the city's trees very, very seriously. They have been engaged and will continue to be engaged in thinking about the impacts of this project. And presenters, the park users and neighbors who are here because this is a green space that they love and enjoy and they care about very, very deeply. And so they want to understand what's happening and they have legitimate questions and concerns. And so I know that feelings may be running high for many, many reasons, right? Some of which have nothing to do with the park, right? You could be coming from work or watching the news. And we know that there are just so many things that can be bringing up hard feelings right now, and people can feel overwhelmed. And I just want to remind everyone that we here get to decide the tone and tenor of how we interact with one another. We're all trying to navigate something that really is unprecedented. And just I want to encourage you to treat one another with respect, because as fellow humans, we deserve it. As fellow members of this community, we share. And just please assume that people are coming here with good intentions and trying to do their best. And that's it. So with that, I'm just going to hand things back to Rebecca. And then just again, thank you, Pittsburgh Water, and thank you, attendees, for just being invested in this wonderful park of ours.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yes, those comments are very meaningful. The park is definitely a gem and has a lot of shared uses. And Pittsburgh Water takes its role as the manager, facilitator of the water infrastructure within the park very seriously. But we also recognize that there is a responsibility to meet the community's vision as well. And so that's what tonight is really about. And Councilwoman Gross, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. The floor is yours to welcome the group.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Stephanie. I do appreciate everyone being here. I think it's a double book tonight. I'm also at a conference at the same time, but I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to kick off this meeting that as Stephanie and Rebecca both have put a lot of time into this. Background, we've had many, many meetings, again, with all of the partners. So thank you already for everyone's time getting us to tonight, to forestry, to Pittsburgh Water, to HBCC, and your valiant championing. I want everyone on the call to know what a great organization you have representing you in the neighborhood organization. And I'm really grateful for the partnership and managing and championing all of the neighborhood projects. I think what I've heard from constituents and in the meetings that we've had so far is that it's important for all of us to have not just ensuring another 100 years of water infrastructure, which we know we have an old infrastructure system in our water system, and many of us have already endured some of the upgrading and replacing of that water infrastructure on our streets. So we're rebuilding the water system for the next 100 years, but it's also important for us to reinvest in the beauty and the legacy of the gem that is the park proper of Highland Park as well. And so that's really, I think, what how I see tonight's conversation. The beginning of this conversation is first for us to get the kind of information in front of us. But in the charrettes and the public comments that we have moving forward, I think it's okay for us to also demand that we respect the legacy of the beauty of the park and of the infrastructure itself, right? So I know what I hear often is that we used to be able to build things that were actually beautiful. And so I think what I hear a lot from residents is that we're able to also build something for the future that is also beautiful and to reinvest um, in that legacy as well for future generations and for the future of our city. I also want to give a shout out to the mayor's office. Thank you for being here. And we've been working closely with the last administration and we'll be working closely with the next administration to make sure that we all do our part on the city side as well as on PWSA side. So again, thank you for making the space. Thank you to Rebecca and to all the partners in Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy and of course to Forestry. So that we look forward to seeing what we come up with so that we are having safe, secure water and rebuilding our city's infrastructure, but also rebuilding its community. So that's all I've got. I really appreciate everybody's time and I look forward to seeing the discussion.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And that is really the exciting part of tonight's meeting is that it is very future looking and provides an opportunity to us to really think about how we want the future of the park to incorporate all of these uses, to reimagine the landscaping. And so while, it's not necessarily a project that anybody anticipated or wanted, it does open the door for a lot of opportunities. And we have the chance to really see, bring a vision to life that isn't here today, but could be something that's really wonderful for tomorrow. We do have a full agenda this evening, and so I will spend some time just reviewing the purpose of the meeting and talking through the principles that Pittsburgh Water uses when working with the public on infrastructure projects like this. I will then turn it over to Barry King, who will provide a status update on some of the current and anticipated projects within Highland Park. And then Zach Rinker, who is the project manager, will review the slope stability project with us. He'll go through the goals, the challenges and opportunities that are associated with it, and talk through some of the landscaping strategies. Realizing that we are covering a lot of information this evening, we want to make this more of a dialogue. So we have incorporated question sections throughout different portions of the presentation so that you don't have to wait until the very end to have your questions answered. Please, though, use the chat. Put your questions into the chat. I have members of the public affairs team who are here tonight who are helping to manage the meeting along with me. So Holly Bamba and Marie Navarro Sullivan will be helping to facilitate the chat and take notes. And then at the end, we will open up the meeting for additional questions and to begin a bit of a brainstorming about what you would like to see within the park. So just briefly, the purpose of tonight's meeting is really to provide an overview of the slope stability project, talking through how the project came to be and the things that are driving the project. We will answer your questions and address your concerns and then facilitate a discussion that is more about the landscaping specifically and the community benefits that you would like to see incorporated. It's also important to realize that this is a regulatory-driven project, and we do have a responsibility to meet those regulations that that the agencies we report to expect of us. That said, we are also a community partner. And as a publicly owned and operated water authority, we recognize that our infrastructure is in the public spaces that we all share throughout Pittsburgh. And that is very significant within Highland Park. And because of that, we also have a responsibility to be stewards of those spaces that we share. And so we do realize that this project will change the landscape of the park as well as its surrounding neighborhoods. And that is why we created this engagement series. This is important so that we can work together and incorporate the valuable public input into this project. We are committed to meeting you where you are and doing our best to create a project that balances our need to provide safe, reliable water services with the vision of the community. And with that, I will now turn it over to Barry, who will provide a few updates about some of the projects taking place within the park.
All right. Just a confirmation that you're able to hear me clearly. Okay, very good. So, good evening. It's great to see the large turnout we have here this evening. And as Rebecca just noted, Pittsburgh Water has genuinely worked to be a civic partner throughout the implementation of our critical and necessary drinking water system capital projects within the Highland Park community, as well as within your park spaces. Several members of the Pittsburgh Water team, including myself, have been striving over the past 9 years. It's great to see so many names of individuals that I've met through walking tours and different presentations that we've given over these past 9 years. And we're engaging with you at various points throughout the planning, the design, and the construction of critical drinking water facilities. So our commitment is demonstrated in facilities that have incorporated the settings in which our facilities are situated. We have several recent examples as shown on this slide, which includes the orthophosphate pavilion, which really disguises our orthophosphate storage and addition facilities as a park shelter within Highland Park. This was constructed in April of 2019. The pavilion is shown in photo 1 and point 1 on the map. Currently, we are nearing the completion of the latest project under our water reliability plan, which is the Highland Reservoir pump station located at the intersection of Mellon Terrace and North Negley Avenue, shown as point 2 and photo 2. Concurrently with the completion of the Highland Reservoir pump station, anticipated to be completed by the summer of 2026, we have the landscaping surrounding this new facility, including a meadow between the pump station and North Negley Avenue. The meadow is shown in the rendering number 3 and the point 3 on the map, which will allow our new pump station to fit better within the park realm. And then as a final element of the Highland Reservoir pump station and the completion of the Rising Main 3 and 4 rehabilitation projects, we are addressing improvements to the park trail along Bunker Hill Street, which is shown as point 4 here on the map, which we have identified as the Serviceberry Trail, which has been designed by Evolve EA. Next slide. So the Serviceberry Trail, I'll start there. The landscape architectural rendering shown here presents the plan for the installation of several flowering native trees that will help disguise the vent pipes that are seen above the ground, that provide a critical function of protecting our rising main that runs within the park along this trail. As for timing, this work is currently being procured and anticipated to be installed this spring. Next slide. As I noted, Highland Reservoir Pump Station is currently under construction, and for many of the trades, the facility is nearing substantial completion. We are now at the stage of flushing, testing, and disinfecting the newly installed piping network, both inside the building as well as outside, which includes a new rising main that had been constructed last year, spanning between Highland 2 Outlet Gatehouse and the new pump station. In addition, the testing of the pumps, all equipment, controls, etc., within the pump station is underway. We anticipate the pump station to be operational in April of 2026. Next slide. So as for the pump station meadow, as I noted before, the design of the new meadow in front of the pump station has been completed by Evolve EA, as shown in the landscape rendering here. This meadow, once established, will screen the new pump station from the neighborhood while allowing us to be good stewards in reforesting a portion of the unoccupied portion of the site with a successional forest. This work has been solicited and a contractor selection is currently underway. And then the next slide. So finally, as confirmation, please note that Highland 1 Reservoir is no longer utilized to store source water for our drinking water system, which is a direct obligation that was required under the September 6, 2024 consent decree. Pittsburgh Water still utilizes the Highland 1 Reservoir as a relief point in the system where excess pressure water that is released from the hydraulic control structure is entered into the Highland 1 Reservoir. It's a protection of the system that when pressures fluctuate, it allows the overpressure to relieve itself at various points in the day. We will continue to utilize the Highland 1 Reservoir until such time as additional elevated storage of treated water is provided within the Highland 1 system. That is just outside the 5-year CIP window at this time, so we will be utilizing for years to come. It will remain a park amenity, and I think that summarizes where we are with current infrastructure and the new construction. So I'll turn it over to Zach. Or first, let me take any questions you may have on any of those slides.
Yeah, thanks for the updates, Barry. Are there any questions about any of the updates and projects that Barry has shared so far? I see that there are a lot of questions coming into the chat right now. The questions around trees, I would ask that we hold for a little while until we get through Zach's portion of the presentation where he's providing an overview of the slope stability project that is specifically related to the trees.
We have a question related to being able to access the studies related to qualifying for the high hazard dam status.
I would suggest that we defer that to Zach.
Yeah, I can answer that now if that's okay. We did flood inundation studies that show like the downstream impact if there was a catastrophic failure, and that sets the definition of the hazard potential. And then the other criteria is just the volume of water that they hold and the depth of water. So we do have those inundation maps in that report, and our consultants on the call. Ron, correct me if I'm wrong about any of that, but I think that inundation mapping kind of demonstrates the risk associated with it.
Yeah, Zach, that's correct.
There's a question in the chat that to verify the specific area under discussion right now, it was my understanding that it's the hillside along the reservoir of Mellon Terrace, and just a question if that's correct.
Yeah, so along Mellon Terrace, and we'll get into some aerial views, but it extends around the rear of the reservoir as well. It's the entire like built up portion of the reservoir. There's like if you look on Google Earth or maps, there's like a ring of trees you can see around the perimeter that kind of shows that area. You'll see it in the presentation as we move along.
What I might suggest, and forgive me for jumping in here, I see many questions, and that is a large purpose of this meeting, are addressing a lot of what Zach is going to be presenting on tonight.
Yeah,
so it
we'll
might be beneficial to have him run through his presentation, and then some of the questions will be clearly answered. Others may have additional questions based on what you see. So
Yeah.
if that works.
That would work. There is a question in here, though, from John Kowalski about the pump station regarding lighting. Is there anything that can be done to better direct and shield the lighting from the pump station? The amount of light pollution that we have in the ravine area as a result of that building's lighting has disrupted the serenity of that area.
Thank you for that comment. We will definitely be looking at that, thanks to the identification of it being a potential issue. The high-rise complex that is across from Highland #2 Reservoir had similar comments with regards to the reservoir lighting. So we can definitely take a look at that and try to address downlight, and we can look at that.
I appreciate that, Barry. It also doesn't really appear to turn off at any point. So that'd be really, really helpful.
We'll also address that as well. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
And Rebecca, I had a question that was specifically in response to something, Barry, that you said. When talking about the uncovered reservoir, you talked about how it's used for sort of overflow to relieve pressure from the system, and that it was going to remain a park amenity. But is there still an anticipation that the trees around it will need to be removed? Again, that's not the discussion for tonight, but just so people are clear about long-term expectations for that space.
So by technical definition, based on the studies that have been conducted, it does fall also within a high hazard dam classification. But as the state has been focused primarily on the Highland 2 reservoir, that is a determination to be resolved at a later point, whether the trees will need to be addressed. If there are modifications that may be able to be made to the dam structure itself that would render it no longer high hazard, those have to be evaluated by consultants and the state. But I think there may be ways of addressing that. That I can't have a commitment either way at this point, but I can say at this point there's no intent of addressing the trees on Highland 1 within the current window of the CIP.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you.
And there's another question here. Will the meadow be indigenous also?
I would like to phone a friend and see if someone from Evolve would like to answer that specific question.
Sure.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Christine.
absolutely. Right now, we do have indigenous grasses and native tree species specified for that, and we are happy to share more information at the next meeting. So,
Right.
Very good.
And Stephanie, did we cover your question already? You're good. Okay. This next one from Joe Edelstein. Can you explain the scope of the pump station and if it includes the permanent PRT layover?
So as far as the physical impacts, if I'm reading into the question, is modifications that would be conducted upon Mellon Terrace, we have decoupled the project. It wasn't specifically addressing what had historically been shown by the PRT for layover facilities that were being requested. I don't anticipate those to come back in any timely fashion. So I think what you are seeing there, we already did modifications under this project to expand the lane widths along Mellon Terrace to meet the expectations of the PRT. So I'm not anticipating any additional work being necessary along with the PRT in this location.
And the last question we'll take on this section, will Highland 1 contain chlorinated water?
So the small amount of residual water that is relieved through the hydraulic control structure and MFP there's a minimal amount of chlorination, and once it's in contact with the water and the environment, we have a zero residual of chlorine within that within the Highland Reservoir itself. So I would say that no, it's not adding any residual to the Highland Reservoir at this time. It's always been considered to be a source water. It isn't technically classified as drinking water. It always had to be treated through the MFP and then chlorinated again to gain drinking water status again. So that will remain.
Great. All right, so I think the rest of the questions are a little bit more related to the slope stability project that Zach will begin discussing at this point in time. And so we do have these questions noted, and we'll come back to them. But Zach, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Rebecca. So as we've been saying, Highland Reservoir 2 is classified as a dam. It is a built-up structure that holds back a significant amount of water. In 2019, the DEP kind of got it on their radar with our other lighting projects. It's pretty typical of the country's experience with dams. There's a lot out there that the regulators just don't know about. There's a lot of outcoming technology that involves aerial imaging and drones to identify those from a really high level. But kind of a new problem that the state realized, hey, this is a dam, it's not in regulation. It is size category C based on the volume it stores and the depth of the storage, and the hazard potential 1, which again demonstrated from those inundation maps and flow studies, that catastrophic failure could result in a loss of life and major downstream damage, depending on where it breaks. Most of it obviously is going down into the zoo parking lot, and there's some houses in the area. And the C1 dam requires an emergency action plan, which is the reporting sequence if there is a catastrophic failure, or there's signs of excessive structural damage. And it also requires a dam safety permit, which is what we're trying to get out of this project, is to get into compliance and get that permit on the books. Next slide. So what is a dam? An impounding structure that holds water. And when we think of like Hoover Dam, concrete dams, this is an earthen dam. It's just a pile of dirt, and the weight of that earth is what holds the water back. Highland Reservoir holds approximately 125 million gallons of drinking water, critical aspect of our drinking water system, and serves portions of Squirrel Hill, downtown, south side, a lot of the city, on Washington West End. Dams are required to be regularly inspected. We have quarterly inspections we have to perform, and then a yearly inspection. It's external, and we submit to the state for their review. They're required to meet current safety standards, which have evolved over the years as the dam safety industry has studied case studies of failures and learn based off experience over the years. And one of those requirements is to not have vegetation growing on the dam embankments, like woody vegetation, brush, deep roots, anything that impacts the ability to inspect and see the ground surface. And with that, tree removal will be required on those portions of the slope that are part of the embankment, not like the natural ground. And we'll go over those limits further on. And again, we can't get those permits. The state won't approve permits with the trees on them per the regulations. So next slide.
I'm listening to this meeting about the Highland Park Reservoir.
Hi, Karen. We can hear you. Thanks. Next slide. So why is vegetation on dams an issue? Trees and brush on dams embankment can hide the developing structural and drainage problems. Think sinkholes, animal burrows, which we have a lot of, and we're sure there's plenty more that we can't see, and seepage pathways. I guess all the earthen dams are going to have seepage through them. It's important to identify it and control it so it doesn't cause structural problems. Trees, as they age, can be uprooted by strong winds, and when the root ball is pulled out, that provides another opportunity for water seepage to accelerate and cause other structural issues from that void that formed. And when we think about the life of a reservoir versus the life of a tree, I mean, it's kind of like the reservoir is going to be there, and as long as we're here using the drinking water, the forest itself is going to grow and parts of it are going to die, and just different life cycles there. And internal erosion can lead to sudden failure of the dam. That's when the seepage coming through moves the soil particles, just moves them from where they are. That causes a void inside of the embankment. And as that void grows, it could potentially collapse. And that's when you get catastrophic embankment failure and you see water potentially rushing out. And those inundation mappings coming to reality. So next slide. So existing issues with Highland 2, the slopes are too steep in many areas. Soil and dirt has a natural angle in which it's stable without any reinforcement. Steeper slopes than what the soil can handle present landslide risks. If you think about if you're at the beach and you're just dropping a pile of sand out of your hand and it has like a natural angle it sits at and anything else just slides off. It's kind of like that here, based on the studies of the soil conditions, the bedrock. Those factors of safety for that slope angles aren't adequate. And I know, I guess the trees themselves, the root balls, help to hold that steep slope together, but the intent is to not require that, I guess, that application of the tree roots to do that. So Highland 2 has a history of failures. Historical records indicate that the reservoir leaked substantially when it was constructed in the early 1900s. In the late 90s, there were active slides that were repaired, and we did install the bentonite slurry wall to stop the seepage at certain points to prevent those issues to some extent. And then, again, cracks, seeps, and animal burrows are it's Swiss cheese with animal burrows and roots. Trees and invasive undergrowth are an issue. There's lots of knotweed that is a nightmare to inspect through, even worse than the forested areas. And again, that's to monitor for seepage and other structural issues. And again, our ability to safely inspect the structure is very limited by the vegetation. And after 120 years of that being the case, there's a lot to repair and address and a lot of risk to manage here. So next slide. So goals of the project are to make the hillside safer, to meet those state and FEMA safety regulations, enabling long-term inspection, monitoring, and safe operation of the critical drinking water infrastructure. And we're here today to try to get input on ways that we can do that that's still visually appealing to the community and fits in with the neighborhood and the park that everyone in the neighborhood and the city loves. So yeah, we're here to work with you and get your feedback. And next slide. I guess we'll go over questions.
We're going to pause for questions. There were a couple earlier. Okay, so a lot of what Zach presented is right now is on the background and some of the regulatory drivers with the project. There's a lot of questions still here on the tree removal. So we'll take a couple of those now, I think, to just keep the discussion moving and to give folks some context around the trees. So the first question relates to the trees on Mellon Terrace. Will those trees be removed?
Yes.
Okay. And does this project also include the Green Meridian or only the hillside? And if it doesn't include that center space, is there a plan to replant that area?
There's no plans to impact that area with this project. I do think there are some stormwater features in there, if I'm not mistaken, that limit the planting that we can do there. That is being used as like a stormwater facility, essentially. I believe there's some tanks under there or something. I don't know. But that does limit what plantings can be put there as well.
Okay. Where can we get access to the studies related to this plan? Let us talk about how best to make those available to the public. We can typically put this type of information onto our website. I just want to make sure that everything is fine with the project team before committing to that. But our website is generally a good place for us to share that information with the public. And I think this one goes back to the pump station and the information Barry presented earlier. Oh, and Barry is on it. He answered the question directly. The question was, will the current apparently temporary infrastructure hidden by screens on Mellon Street between Bunker Terrace and Bunker Hill be removed? And Barry says, yes, the temporary pumps on Mellon Street will be removed upon the full commissioning of the Highland Reservoir pump station. Great. And I think we will pause here and continue on with the presentation because I think the rest of the presentation will provide some context to the questions that are currently in the chat. Okay, so Zach, I will turn it back over to you to start with the project overview.
So just some history again in 2019 with the liner and cover project. The P dam safety structure came to their attention. It wasn't on their list of dams. In the 2020, 2021, we got our dam safety assessment report and a tree survey was completed. So we have a counting of all of the trees around the slopes that are being impacted in species and diameters. Coordination with the DEP started in 2022, 2023, some engineering work, some preliminary studies, and the water main work. 2024, we started working on conceptual embankment remediation alternative reports, which explored the different technologies available to do this work. And also worked on a tree removal plan with the state per their guidance of how best to accomplish that. March of 2025, we presented that phase 1 tree removal plan to public. I believe that was through the council. Worked on permitting project processes and the pump station construction started. And then these discussions with the city and stuff started as well. And here we are in 2026 with these community meetings, getting your input on landscaping and how the structure will look at the end of the project. And then the project itself, structural improvements are going to commence in 2027, late 2027 into 2028. So challenges with the site, very visible location, a well-loved park. Everyone's going to be impacted by this that uses the park. It's going to change the vista from the street, from the trails behind it. So again, we understand that there's a lot of strong feelings and a lot of people that really value this area. A large number of trees do need to be removed. I think the number from the vegetation report was maybe like 800 that are over the city's caliper limit. Yeah, like 12 inches. So a lot of challenges there. And then just all the different agencies involved, all the permits we need to get, state, local, I mean, any big construction project, but yeah. So these changes will lead to long-term stewardship of the covered Highland Reservoir, creating clearer, healthier slopes, protecting the source of drinking water and downstream communities that would be impacted by catastrophic failure. I guess when I say healthier slopes, I do mean like grass, meadow in good condition. This will allow for improved visibility and access for maintenance and just making sure there's no developing issues. It will address problems with the invasive vegetation, all the knotweed and invasive non-native trees, and allows for landscape strategies that improve ecological conditions and provide pollinator-friendly habitat. So again, we're looking for native species. We're looking to enhance as much as we can the ecological benefits of the area without that forested area, converting it to meadow. And it allows the incorporation of educational signage to build awareness about Pittsburgh Water's infrastructure in the area, presence in Highland Park. There's a lot of cool history for the reservoirs, and I guess people look and just see a lake or something, but there's a lot more engineering background to it that I think people would really benefit from learning about. So next slide. These are our existing conditions plan. You can see, so we're along Mellon Terrace down the bottom of the screen is the frontage, and the zoo's to the north. The green area is the wooded areas down slope that are going to remain. There's a blue line that shows the fence around the top of the reservoir, and you can see the dashed property line. We do show toe of slope line there, and that's the proposed toe of slope grading, I believe. So it kind of shows you the impact that'll have, and it'll show up again later. Here's some pictures of the vegetation. You can see all the knotweed in image one. That really is not tenable for inspection at all. And typical vegetation on the northern bank is very densely underbrush and wooded. I don't know if you can imagine trudging through that, looking for animal burrows, looking for wet spots. And even if you could find the wet spots before the trees suck up the water, but it's another issue. Next slide. Another map showing the steep slopes in the area, just very naturally landslide prone area based on the topography and the geology, which is demonstrated by the history of slides on the reservoir itself. So yeah. Next slide. Here's some historic photos of the reservoir when it was first built. There are no trees on it. The city planted them a few years later in efforts to promote this area as a park and develop it into something the community could rely on for public access and recreation. But it did not have any trees when it was first built, obviously. But that's kind of, I guess, if you can imagine what it would look like. We'll show some renderings of some plantings and stuff, but it's just a bare grass meadow. But yeah, that's the historical photos. There's some other ones online we could probably share that are pretty cool to look at. But next slide. More existing conditions. We have these two. There's the stage near the pump station and another like platform area up front. Those are not being impacted by the project. They will remain. We kind of limited the grading around the pump station area to not impact that. Next slide. Just some views of the reservoir from the frontage along the street. I'm sure you're all familiar with this, but again, there's some trees there that will need to be removed, changing this view. I won't say for the better, but it's what we're working with and what we're trying to address here. So next slide. More views down from the zoo. You can see way behind the zoo, there's trees, that like line of trees that's really high up in image one. Those are the ones we're talking about. I think all the way down to the zoo building. No, it is that whole slope. Yeah. Just trying to orient myself. And then coming up around 1 Mile Place, more trees on that hillside that will be coming down. Next slide. Okay, so here is the proposed plan. We have some shading showing the different methods that are being used. If you'll look, you can see like the contour lines that show the proposed grading. The darker lines are where we're installing soil nails, which I'll talk about in a little bit. They're inside the structure. It's basically just a nail that ties into the bedrock and holds the soil together where we can't get those slopes flat enough. And so this first, is that pink? Sorry, I'm colorblind. I should have reviewed this a little closer. But the pink there, the areas of regrading, flattening, and soil reinforcements. We're using those three technologies there. Is that a blue, light blue? That's just earthen flattening. There's no soil nails in that area. And then up front, it's not as steep there. We're just making it a more uniform slope, so it's easier for inspection. And the vegetation there will also be impacted. Next slide. Again, another breakdown of these kind of reaches where we're proposing to do the work in different segments. We will be using, again, these soil nails. You can see the pictures, the finished product. They're just kind of up against the hillside and screwed in. And I believe they're, well, Ron, will they look like that at the end of the day with like grass on them or?
Sorry, I was muted there. Some variation of that. I mean, they could be covered, but for the most part, they'll be pretty inconspicuous.
Okay, and again, those nails are along the rear and above the zoo building, so you won't see those from Mellon Terrace at least. But and then we do have these anti-slide piles as well. It's like an internal wall to help prevent slides and provide stability. Next slide. So let's talk about trees to be removed. First shading is the lighter green trees to remain around the pump station. The is that tan maybe for the select tree removal only down the hillside. We are going to look at trees that are in bad shape or have already fallen, restoring those root balls, taking down trees that are unhealthy. And that does free up some space for some potential replanting in those areas, which we'll obviously consult with forestry about. And then the dark green zone is the limits of all the trees that are to be removed with this project, which I think answers one of the questions from the chat. So it is along Mellon Terrace and then again around the rear of the reservoir, around the whole perimeter. Because the structure it's built up, the entire thing's built up on top of existing grades. So it's all the whole ring is considered as part of that structural embankment. Next slide. More of the proposed plan, you can see we have 3 rain gardens around the perimeter to control stormwater runoff, meeting those MPDES requirements, reducing the flows, reducing the pre-existing flows to get below this volume and rates. There's some access roads around so we can get to our facilities. There's the gatehouse up to the north, inlet vault on the right side in the middle, and then below is the pump station access road. So there will probably be some, well, I don't know whether it's important even. Sorry. And again, the sorrel nails in the dark black line. And I guess should we mention? No, next slide. So here's some cross sections. You can see the pool. Again, this is on the One Wild Place side. We show the bedrock there. The soil nails, you can see they kind of go down into the earth and again hold that tight together on the embankment. And here the soil nails are being used because we're obviously limited by the road. We can even out the slope, but we can't extend it at all. So we have to use those nails to achieve that stability there. And there's a line there all along the slope. You see it's a drain that will be, there's going to be a drainage system installed. And that is to control any seepage that does occur and manage it and prevent it from causing that internal erosion. Next slide. So here we are, One Wild Place. Grading here is just smoothing out any uneven surfaces, not a lot of new fill, and tree removal. Next slide. So south of Mellon Terrace, again, here we're limited by the meadow area and pump station, but there is adequate room to get those slopes just with regrading. You can see we're just barely there. We're not changing it that much, but to get those required factors of safety, we do need to do some regrading here. Next slide. Here's we get into the meat, the worst parts of the project, back on the Heth's Run side and around the zoo. So here we're limited by the steep slope that goes down to the zoo parking lot and Domi parking lot down at Heth's Run. So we did need to use soil nails on this side to, I guess the idea of the soil nails is it improves the factor of safety so you don't have to go out as far horizontally with the fill. And it's a cost balancing act and design questions. But so that combination is being used back here. There will be a new access road. You can see the car driving on it there and drain pipe. Yeah, a lot of fill back here. Next slide. Was there one for the zoo? No, it's fine.
Right, and that takes us back to questions. There were quite a few questions about whether we would be able to plant native grasses and shrubs. The landscaping strategies are the next section of this presentation, so we will be able to address those questions there. But we are prioritizing and focusing on the use of native grasses, perennials, and trees and shrubs where those can be planted. Can small native trees be planted on the slopes?
No. The limitations of the vegetation, the root ball is an issue, so you can't have deep growing roots, and any woody vegetation limits the ability to, because the root ball is the issue mainly, and the overtopping, and just DEP regulations.
If trees are removed, how are you planning to stop erosion? Will retaining walls be constructed?
So the meadow grass and condition will be stable enough to prevent erosion, and there's also going to be a drain on the top drainage system on top of the structure to prevent the crest runoff from flowing down the hillside. But the purpose of the final landscaping, that meadow, that grass, is to be a stable hillside that doesn't have erosion on it. And part of our maintenance and long-term plan is to keep an eye out for that and repair it if it does happen. If gullies form or anything, we need to get out there and quickly repair those. So not being able to see that happening is part of the existing issue.
Right. The next question is, will you be presenting a map that shows how many and where the trees will be removed? Can we develop a more specific map around which trees are being removed and make that available for February 28th?
Yeah, so we showed that green shading, and then we do have that vegetation analysis report that we did a few years ago that had those specific counts in it. I guess we'll look to update that with the current plans, make sure that numbers are still accurate, and we can definitely provide those maps and studies with the other information.
All right. What are your plans to stabilize the slopes adjacent to the zoo road?
If I'm understanding that area in question, that would be the soil nails that we discussed on that one cross section, or up around Well Place, where we're limited horizontally, so we have to use the soil nail technology.
So the next question does get into some of the community benefits. Could you address what solutions have been considered to allow pedestrians to use the path around Reservoir 2 and still meet requirements and project safety? Zach, do you want to address that question, at least from the regulatory perspective at this point? And then I think like maybe that's something we can open up as towards the end of the meeting where we're talking about where we're doing more of the brainstorming and idea generation.
Yeah, I'm assuming this is in regards to like the rising main right of way. Is that what we're currently referring to as a trail back there? Or...
Aaron, would you like to come off mute to talk about the area that you're specifically referring to? I think you're talking about the pathway around the reservoir specifically.
Yes, Rebecca, that's exactly right. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so Zach, the path around the reservoir. Like if you could just talk about the regulatory requirements we need to meet.
I'm really sorry. What path? Like, is it the rising main right away?
No, I don't think it's. I don't think she's referring to the rising main. I think she's referring to pedestrians being able to have access to walking around the reservoir.
Can I inject something here?
Yes.
At one point, the reservoir was not fenced in. And by the pump station, you can see that there are two paths that go up to the reservoir. People used to walk around that reservoir like they do the big reservoir.
Right. So there's there's the road that goes back kind of mid slope then above the zoo trail. So yes, there is a trail there. I think the requirements for the fence are more closely monitored by Homeland Security as far as security of the drinking water itself.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, we do have fence improvements being done, and the security teams working on addressing those up top.
Because the
Um,
fence was installed before Homeland Security existed. Just saying.
right. And
Hey,
I don't think
Zach, if I
DEP.
may,
Yeah.
I'm actually working with Barry Budd on that.
Yeah.
They are going to be installing a new section of gate that matches the existing fence in there. And I do not believe there are plans to make this publicly accessible because, as you said, it is currently being managed by Homeland Security, and it factors into a 3-year project that Pittsburgh Water just completed for fencing and security upgrades on all of their sites around the city.
Well, but that's the existing fence at the top of the reservoir. I think you can still walk. If you come around the side, you can still get on the road. I think the trail we're talking about. But back to the DEP rules, they don't really have any rules about where the fencing needs to go. Again, that's Homeland Security, and there is benefit and interest from us as the owner of the facility to prevent, I guess, public use presents the opportunity for erosion to occur more easily if there's a walking trail or people are going on the slopes. Or, I mean, I don't know why anyone would take a shovel out there, but it's kind of, I don't know. So the fence is something we definitely want to get some input on, and is not finalized yet. Well, and part of that discussion is access and connectivity of the trail system back there, and yeah. So
Yeah. Hey, Zach, it's Erin. I'm still not sure we're talking about the same thing. I think what the neighbors are talking about is just the pathway that goes around the reservoir, similar to the way that the pathway around Reservoir One is a pedestrian multi-use pathway. The pathway around Reservoir Two has been fenced off with chain link fencing for very quite some time.
yeah.
And the original images that, for example, you shared that as like an open and available walk space. So
Okay.
it's that pathway, that loop
Up
that's
top,
really
like the road, the
incredible.
actual asphalt up top, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know because I haven't been up there because it's fenced off.
Right. So again, that
But
is
yeah, the
from
paved.
Homeland Security. Yeah, which
I have heard that. I think my question to you is what solutions have been considered so far to return that to pedestrian access?
Can I
I'm
jump
not
in?
from. Yeah.
Okay, so just as confirmation, there have been a number of evaluations that have been conducted of our infrastructure between the point of water withdrawal at the Aspenwall or forgive me, Pittsburgh Water Treatment Plant on Freeport and our various storage facilities when they are above ground storage facilities. Subsequent to 9/11, there have been very strict requirements regarding access to points of the infrastructure that are available above ground. So the reservoirs themselves have been deemed, that's part of the reason why the Highland 1 reservoir was of great concern to the MFP or to the DEP, where we had uh, a fleet of 30 cameras surrounding the reservoir and infrastructure to ensure that anybody seen that could access the water would be identified. That being said, the current regulations prevent you from having immediate access to liners, covers, and other physical infrastructure of tankage. You need to have a security fence and monitoring devices, including cameras that surround this infrastructure. So we've been in coordination with Homeland Security, the FBI, regarding assessments that have been conducted of our facilities, and there has been clear determination that the fencing is required. So, unfortunately, we can't
Yeah, no,
remove
Barry, I
that.
appreciate that. That's all really helpful. Did you talk about just putting the fencing on the inside rail so that the outside pathway can still be accessible and yet provide that same fence barrier?
So there's still infrastructure, including the gatehouse itself, and we do have the inlet and outlet gatehouse. That if we had the fencing on the interior, it would prevent our staff from being able to access it. So the final determination was to keep the fence at the perimeter of the reservoir itself,
And
surrounding the roadway.
there's also like, I mean, the liner and cover has a very extensive drainage and pump system on it. There's a lot of equipment on the crest that um, we don't want people having access to, essentially, that can't be moved anywhere else. Um, so yeah, a lot of critical infrastructure up there. So, but appreciate that request to return to being a walking trail. I think we'll write that down and think more about it, what impacts that would have, but sounds like it's already been.
Saying like from a community perspective, so much is being lost in this project in terms of like the loss of trees. I think taking a really close look at how to find a win-win on that pathway would be a really big deal.
Yeah, I think that's something we will definitely be looking at more closely, and I think we'll have more time to engage with the community on that topic during the February 28th design workshop. We do have one more section here related to the landscaping strategies. So let's just, if you don't mind, let's jump to that, and then we can come back to questions.
Quick so we can get to the questions everyone wants to answer. So
There's a lot.
planting strategies. The dark green is the grass species only. There's low, shallow roots, grass that can be mowed low so we can inspect it easily. There's the pump station meadow, then the purple near the pump station. The pink perimeter around the green is there's a 10 to 20 foot section below the toe of the slope. So where that grading ends, the new dirt we're putting on, that area, that 10 feet, is still considered part of the reservoir. But we're looking at working with the DEP to get new species of perennial flowers and other things that are low growing, have low roots that are more visually appealing. And that's kind of where we're looking for feedback from the community today on the species and what you want to see there, among other things. And then the orange beyond that is where we can look at planting larger trees and shrubs. Obviously very limited by slopes and area here, but there is some potential for tree replanting. And then again, the green down the slope, light green, is trees to remain. I guess next slide. Oh,
Did I skip a slide?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But regarding the end result, end use of the trees, the lumber that's being removed, we are looking at material reuse options effectively, if feasible. So the Highland Park could be thoroughly repurposed rather than discarded. Next slide. Okay, here we go. Grass species. So this, I believe these four are from the state's approved list. Again, these are all low growing, easy to mow. Meadow in good condition, typical final restoration requirement. And that's on the new dirt we're putting down and any area of fill and structural embankment. Next slide. Perennials, wildflowers, again, in that strip around the new grading and in the meadow, pump station meadow. You can see the rain gardens there. So hopefully there'll be an attractive perimeter to this that attracts pollinators and becomes an ecological benefit and is visually appealing. And these are all, I believe, native species and ecological, like pollinator species and stuff. That's what the focus was. Next slide. Tree and shrub areas, again, the orange is where we can plant new ones potentially. The green is where existing trees will remain, healthy ones. Again, some native and pollinator species we looked at as options in this area. Next slide. The schedule updates. We're reviewing 90% plans with DEP in late March. late May, we will be submitting 100% plans to the state for their review. So we'll have time until then to incorporate some of the updates from these meetings and February 28th meeting into those submissions. We are anticipating a year of review for the DEP and then going to construction in 2027.
Right. So at this point, we would like to go through the remaining questions, ask additional or answer questions as they're coming in, and then just hear some thoughts and ideas from you that we can take back and incorporate into the planning for the February 28th meeting. So I think we left off with Alexander Payton's question, will there be opportunities to relocate the removed trees?
I could talk to that. I responded, this is Lisa Chaffee.
Thanks, Lisa.
I responded to that in the chat. The trees that are over 12-inch diameter, they're really not great candidates for relocation, along with the topography and just the site conditions. So there's probably not much opportunity for any kind of tree relocation. But then the follow-up, we are diligently working on replacing all the inches that are being removed somewhere in the park through the landscaping that's proposed with these presentations, along with other parts of the park, which are things that we can discuss during the charrette.
Thanks, Lisa. Can either Zachary or Barry identify the funding sources for the project? In particular, has Pittsburgh Water received federal funding? And if so, has Pittsburgh Water completed a Section 106 regarding the impact of this project on a historically designated park within a historically protected neighborhood?
Not federally funded, no.
Is this, it's all ratepayer funded, correct?
Yes. I
Okay.
was told something about our bonds. That is that.
Okay.
I'm not the finance guy.
But I think like perhaps we can look at different funding opportunities. We can, talk to our grant administrator about any opportunities.
Yeah, and I think the question is just pointing. There's an extra levels of review that go into federally funded projects, so that would be a requirement if we were federally funded.
Okay.
It's not something we have done, though.
Okay. How will trees be used when cut down? Can the old growth trees be used by a local business that can repurpose them to be reused to make park benches or tables? Could be a nice way to pay homage to the trees. We are going to be meeting with an organization that Evolve has put us in touch with to talk through how trees could potentially be reused. And so I think that is something we are definitely open to and would like to try to take advantage of if possible.
Yeah, and more on that point, we do plan on incorporating a lot of language into our construction specifications related to a review of the trees when they're cut down and reuse and recyclability, and hopefully getting community engagement from that use and local benefits that aren't just the trees being taken out for lumber and someone makes a buck off them that isn't part of the community or yeah.
Okay. And John's question has been answered related to light pollution. Will the trees be removed in stages or all at once?
So we are planning on coming through and removing the small trees that are below, I don't know if it's 6 or 8 inches from the state's perspective that you can cut down. Those can be clear cut just to improve our access and kind of get it started. Anything over that threshold, you have to remove the entire root ball. That involves we're needing to install a drainage system when you restore that void that was formed. So we're avoiding doing that until we do the full project because we don't want to tear it up, install drains, and then tear it all again to put soil nails in and new grading. So there will likely be a phase 1 of overall like small tree and brush clearing, and then the construction sequence itself, we are operating in breaches. So we'll do one stretch from like the pump station around the rear, and then another stretch. So the trees will be cut in those sections as we progress around the perimeter in stages.
And the next question pertains to Washington Boulevard. Who is now controlling the road shutoff on Washington Boulevard for when flooding happens?
This is Lisa Chaffee again. I responded to that in the chat. The city of Pittsburgh has floodgates and lights and arms that activate during flooding events that are triggered based on certain conditions down there. We also do have night crews that are constantly monitoring radios from the EOC. And if need be, we also respond with additional barricades and go down to the site and clean out and clear out catch basins as we're able to do it during rain events. So it's the Department of Public Works.
Thanks, Lisa. Have you considered replanting a similar number of trees around the neighborhood and other areas throughout Highland Park, Emily's Park, Heth's Run, and neighborhood streets to offset this loss?
So
that is the goal. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, this is Lisa again. Our goal is to talk about a lot of these potential areas and locations for planting during the charrette. And yeah, so every inch being removed will get replaced somewhere in around the park or the immediate area.
And next one, how would you characterize the current danger of any catastrophic collapse of Reservoir 2? Is the zoo facing any jeopardy of mudslides or flooding?
So I guess the quick calculation is if a catastrophic failure occurred, if there's a big void that formed from seepage we couldn't identify, and there's a massive collapse, and I don't know if you've ever seen videos of dams failing, just the water starts flowing and it erodes more and more, and there's a giant rush of water out. The quick calc based on the volume is that there would be a 16.5-foot wall of water coming down the hillside. Depending on where that breach occurred, it could hit the zoo, it could go straight down to Pat's Run and flood out the parking lot. It could, if it went on the Mellon Terrace side, there's some homes that would be impacted before it flowed down into Heth's Run. But yeah, we are talking about a 16-foot high wall of water, worst case scenario.
And Aaron, regarding your comment here, not asking about relocating, thinking about a replacement plan. I think when we have our design workshop on February 28th, we will receive a lot of comments about where and how and the types of trees for replacement, and that I think is an engagement. Well, we'll take the comments on the February 28th meeting. The actual replacement of the trees would be like more of a city collaboration to help. Would be more of a city collaboration to ensure that the trees are replanted. Lisa, is there anything that you would want to add or clarify to that?
Nope, I think that covers it. You know, we've been monitoring it pretty closely, looking at, you know, the surveys, and we know exactly what needs to happen, and we'll be able to share all that information at the charrette.
All right. And this next one is about the fence. That is definitely, I think, going to be part of our February 28th conversation. The fencing is something we are looking at now. Obviously, it does have a lot of different regulations and requirements that we need to follow. But we will, hear and listen to what the community's interest is and see how we can, try to find some type of meeting point if possible. Barry, would you like to comment?
So one point of confirmation, the fencing that has been selected for the portions that are directly abutting the public sphere that are immediately accessible, like the frontage along Mellon Street, that is going to be a not chain link. It's going to be a more ornate fence, similar to what is there. It will be aesthetic to the community from that perspective, because I know some of the individuals have expressed concerns about just having chain link or having triple barbed wire or something to that effect. So it definitely will have a different appearance that matches more closely the architectural view that you see for that fencing.
Thanks, Barry, for that additional context. Are trees that were taken down for the pump station project going to be replaced? Michael Kelly did respond to that question in the chat. We will be collecting mitigation fees from the removals at the pump station once we have a final count of what Pittsburgh Water is going to be replanting. These fees will be used to maintain and replant trees across the park. And Barry responded to the question about the 5-year CIP window for above ground storage. What material are soil nails made of?
So you basically drill a hole and then fill it back up with concrete. I believe we have. Let me pull up double check. Ron, maybe you can interject. I'm going to pull up the plans and look at that detail.
Yeah, sure, Zach. Typically, the soil nails are made out of rebar, typically like you would see like in a concrete, sidewalk or bridge type application, or somewhere like an inch, inch and a half in diameter. So you drill like a 6-inch hole, you insert the rebar. For this project, probably somewhere 20 to 35 feet long. And then you'd grout around them with concrete, as Zach mentioned, to kind of fill in the void around the rebar.
Thank you. While Zach is looking for the plans, I'll keep moving through questions. Previous work that was done below the southwest slope, which we were told was related to the Rising Main project, decimated a nature wetland swell that used to be there. What is going to be done to protect the natural setting of the west, southwest, and south slopes, given the nature of the ravine area?
So we did have a wetlands study performed to identify existing wetlands. I don't know if we accounted for those ones that aren't present anymore. We should probably explore a little more with the design team, but the existing wetlands are being, I believe it, Ron, can you interject? I think if they're not being protected, they're being restored, but I don't think we're touching them.
Yeah, I'd probably have to defer to maybe Corrine if she's on, related to the wetlands delineation that was
We're
done.
talking about like behind the pump station, and
we did a wetland delineation around the perimeter that was to be disturbed as part of the tree removal. There, and I haven't looked at the report in a while, so I can double check my answer, but I don't think that there were any wetlands identified on the slope of the impoundment, but the only thing that was there was a zoo display that was a man-made pond. And that was the only thing that came up in the study. But we didn't go further out into the area.
So let's maybe look at that a little more closely and see if we can more specifically answer the question. A trail around Reservoir 2 has been identified through Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy. With the One Water Trail, can Pittsburgh Water look into creating a walking path outside of the fence? And so I think that is something we can take a look at and discuss at our February 28th design workshop. Given the presence of Japanese knotweed, how confident are you that you can remove and remediate the setting and replace with native meadowscaping and win against the knotweed?
so my understanding is that like the soil that's contaminated with a knotweed will mostly be removed. I assume the topsoil, in order to prevent it from regrowing, and then there's going to be an extensive maintenance and landscaping plan for the first, I guess, probably 2 or 3 years of the project, of the finished construction, to maintain that grass in good condition and prevent knotweed from growing. But that is definitely something we're looking into as part of the final restoration plans that are still being developed. So, but definitely don't want the knotweed to come back.
Will the tree removal be planned to avoid bird nesting season to minimize impact to wildlife?
Don't think so.
Okay. Will the stumps be removed or will we be left with a tree stump farm?
The stumps will be removed in their entirety. Yeah, we're pulling them all out, and that's putting the new dirt down on top of it.
How will the tree removal itself be done so as to not destabilize the embankments? Will root balls be left in place? Is there decomposition factored in? If they'll be removed, won't that create holes?
Yes. I mean, I guess the point of the construction is to get in and do the work while it's still stable. I don't know. I don't know if I could answer that. I'll pass the baton to Ron, maybe, if you can help.
Oh, sure. Yeah, basically, we're going to do the work in sections as Zach mentioned. So there's going to be, minimal disturbance that we can deal with. So that being said, there's going to be engineered fill that we would bring in as part of once the root ball is removed and there's a void there, we would immediately fill it and get everything back to the proposed grade where we want it. So there's not going to be a lot of voids for a very long time that would be subject to erosion or anything like that.
The Highland 1 reservoir will remain an amenity, but will the trees around it need to be removed? Barry has answered this question in the chat. This determination is a work in progress, unknown at this time. There may be ways to ultimately modify the reservoir structure itself that may eliminate the dam classification, but there are no guarantees at this time if modifications can be identified that would be reasonable to effectively eliminate the dam classification and therefore release the requirement to remove trees. The evaluation is a work in progress. Why does Homeland Security have a need at the reservoir? Barry, is this one that you can answer?
Yes, it is required as part of any drinking water authority subsequent to 9/11 to have evaluated their infrastructure for resiliency and protection. And clearly, the requirements for fencing of infrastructure that relate to public access of entry points of contagions or toxins into the drinking water have to be protected for the preservation and the health of the drinking water.
Thanks, Barry. And yes, Robert, I see your question here. We can have a fence and a path too, can't we? That is a really important question that we're hearing tonight from the audience. So we will see how we can potentially balance the requirement for a fence and the interest in a path. All right, and Lisa answered the question on there is a well-graded path that the zoo train used to take, which went along Reservoir 2. There is room to both have a fence and walking path around the reservoir, which can connect the larger trout network. The current safety fence doesn't look like there is room for a trail. There's also a huge hole in the current chain link fence. So I think, yeah, the questions about the fence and the path continue to be a theme here. And so we will come prepared at the end of the month to answer those questions and to have some brainstorming around that. While the loss of trees will be palpable, the gain of grasses and shrubberies will have benefits. Yes, they definitely will, with them being native species definitely will bring benefits to the area. And thank you. We're happy to share this information. What is the plan to continue maintaining the pollinators and keep invasive species like knotweed at bay? I think that we probably still need to develop those plans. There is going to be regular maintenance of the landscaping and of the slope when the new landscaping is installed. So, I think that we will be looking at how we can best maintain the native species and pollinators that we put in place. And are we in conversations with organizations such as the Audubon in Western Pennsylvania about plantings? Zach, have we talked to any of these organizations at all at this point?
This is in regards to the bird seasons with the Audubon.
I think it's just a general question, just related to
It's in
plantings.
regard to the plantings of plants.
Environmental. No, we have not. I'm sure they'd have some good insight onto what species would be accept like good candidates as far as natives and the root requirements and being able to be mowed. Yeah, we'll look into that.
Yeah, I can add to that a little bit with some of the preliminary plantings that we've proposed. We have utilized the Audubons. They have a birdie
great.
dozen. And other items that, the plants that they like, plants that they don't like. We haven't had direct conversations with them, but we have used their materials in our plant selection, our preliminary plant selection.
Participating in the February 28th meeting if unable to attend. I think we do need to identify the questions that we want to have answered or themes in which we want feedback on. This meeting tonight is helping to identify all of that. So what I think we could do is put up some type of form onto our website and invite people to respond that way. There was a lot of interest in this meeting. We had over 100 people RSVP, and we are limited in space at Tree Pittsburgh, so we might have to make that a hybrid meeting of sorts if more people register for the meeting than what the facility can accommodate. So I think that we can find ways to allow for participation in the meeting if you're not able to attend, and we'll communicate that out. Another comment here about the fencing. And so, yeah, the visual of what it would look like without the trees, that is something we will have to illustrate. And another comment on walking opportunities. Christine, what is the name of the organization we're meeting with next week on tree reuse? The name is escaping me right now.
I was afraid you were going to ask because it's also escaping me. It's a national organization that has looked at different types of reuse. There are definitely local folks who would be able to participate as well, but this national organization has some broad experience that we're hoping to learn from. So,
thank you. Will grasses planted be able to include taller natives, such as blue stem, big blue stem, that will do a better job of sheeting out, slowing, and trapping runoff to facilitate infiltration?
I'm not familiar with the mowability of that species. I don't know if it's something we looked into, but we will, if we're going to note that species name down and kind of that focus on the higher height Again, it has to be mowable though, so you need to be able to get and nowadays they use those remote kind of Roomba remote controlled mowers. Get a brush hog off there. The slope limits what equipment you can get up there and limits the height you can mow. So um, we are limited in that regard.
Thanks, Zach. Is forestry aware of the number of trees that have died and later removed in the park on the corner of Negley and Elgin? Can some of the trees removed in your project be transplanted to replace the trees we've lost in that park? Michael, thank you for answering that. This area is on our list for Highland replanting. No timeline as of yet. We have a full assessment of planting areas coming up. Would Robert Felon please apprise us of your discussions with the zoo, which I assume you've had. They have their plans for the area too, what are their concerns and suggestions? We have been in conversations with the zoo. Barry, is there anything that you can summarize right now about the conversations you've had with them?
So we have had at least one coordinated discussion, a sit down with zoo officials to specifically go over the impacts from the project and some of the benefits that the zoo will see resulting from some of the reinforcing of the wall in the vicinity of the education system, the education center that is on the northeast side of the Highland 2 Reservoir. So we've had specific conversations that have taken place. Jeremy Goodman, president and CDO, was part of a conversation along with Trisha Crow, design and construction vice president of Pittsburgh Zoo and Aquarium. So we are in communication. We will continue to coordinate with them and they're understanding the needs and the requirements. We have been flexible with trying to ensure facilities that may be impacted, such as the tram that goes around, as well as the wedding pavilion, the tent structure that they have. We have ensured that we are conducting the work in a time frame that will allow them to fulfill all of their scheduled obligations with that infrastructure. So yes, we are coordinating and we will continue to do so.
Thank you. There's a couple of questions here about the about noise and air pollution from the buses, particularly with the I just lost it. Anyway, yeah, just questions about noise and air pollution from the buses. Are we having any engagement with them at all regarding this project?
So the PRT, I would suggest that we can forward those comments directly to Domi and the PRT with regards to what we received during this meeting. We have not had any continued discussions and the porta potties as well. That discussion can take place. So we'll forward those on your behalf.
Thank you. And I think, Zach, I'm going to take this one. Just any way plans can be rescheduled to not negatively impact bird nesting. Is that something we can look at through the construction specifications?
I mean, bird nesting is March through August, right? So that kind of, and this project's kind of critically, other large projects, the ABC project is critically related to the timeline of this project's completion. So not having that bulk of time to work to avoid that would probably be pretty detrimental to a lot of our ongoing infrastructure improvements. But something we can definitely look into, maybe a more focused time window of pause or tree clearing or timing related to that.
Thank you. I think, when will the community know about the removal trees for Reservoir 1? When will communication come back? Timeline estimates? I think Barry addressed this question. The above-ground storage tank will ultimately be added to a 5-year CIP window at a point in time that is beyond 2034. So I think, yeah, Barry, do you want to take this question? I think this response was in regards to a deleted question.
So I am so sorry. Can you
I'm
tell me
sorry.
which one you're working with, Rebecca? I
This one
somehow missed
from
it.
Elizabeth Hutton. When will the community know about the removal of trees for Reservoir 1? When will
Okay.
communication come back? Timeline estimate?
So I would possibly ask Zach and Ron Chuchi where they believe they stand with regard to work progressing on Highland 1 assessment, but I'm going to say this is probably outside a 4-year window at this point before we'd have those confirmations. Zach, do you have any reason to believe differently?
Um, I would say it will come down to the regulators, um, potentially enforcing enforcement action, fines, and a potential consent order if we're operating and owning a high hazard dam that doesn't meet standards and doesn't have an active permit on it. Um, it's kind of a precarious situation. I don't know. I don't know what the timeline is there.
So yeah, we can't immediately at this meeting, we can have further discussions. It's something we are still coordinating with the state on and will work towards identifying that time frame. So
Yes, I think mulch is one of the products then in which the trees can be used for and could potentially be made available to the community. Um, Lisa addressed the tree that fell that was related to root rot. And yes, to the extent that we can, we will continue to work with local groups and make sure that we are getting as much input into this project as we possibly can. And participation in this project too from local groups. How much of the area that will be re-landscaped will be Pittsburgh's water responsibility, and how much will be the city's? Some potential new infrastructure, such as trails, may fall, at least in part, outside space that is Pittsburgh's water's responsibility. Will city representatives be participating in the February 28th meeting? So City Forestry will be participating in that meeting, and I imagine that we would have representation from the mayor's office as well. Corey Buckner has been on this call and hearing the conversation. So I expect that the city would be very engaged and wanting to know what the community is saying about this project. And our Pittsburgh Water's responsibility falls within our property line of the projects. So that takes us around the reservoir and around the pump station. And then anything outside of that, I believe would fall to the city. But Lisa, do you want to add any context on this question?
Sure. I've been in touch with Chris Hornstein, who was the Public Works Director, who's now at Facilities. I think he is planning on being at the meeting on the 28th to talk about, to continue those conversations. I think a lot of the outcomes for what will be re-landscaped and who's going to maintain it is going to really be dictated on the how much landscaping we're talking about and the types of landscaping. And I think there's opportunity for lots of conversations around community support and other groups that could help along with our crews, to make sure that whatever landscaping we put in is viable and sustainable. But I think that's going to really be things that we can dig into at that charrette.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes, the February 28th meeting, that will definitely be in person. And we are just given the interest in this meeting, we are going to do some investigation on how we could make that hybrid if we need to, and registration exceeds the capacity of the space. But we definitely want to see people in person for the upcoming meeting. more so than having it be virtual. Is no mowing grasses something that we can consider?
Excuse me. No. Again, to adequately inspect, it needs to be able to be low mode before that inspection occurs. Yeah, that's not an option.
Okay, thank you. I think we can look we we can look more at when the trees can be felled to try to avoid nesting season. We do have to be cognizant, though, of the schedule of the ABC project. This project needs to take it is the ABC project is tied to a larger series of projects called the Water Reliability Plan. That is the generational projects we're investing in right now to secure our large water infrastructure. There is a lot to get into about the Water Reliability Plan. So maybe at the February 28th meeting, we can provide a little context about that project and how this project is tied to that schedule. Just the schedule itself, there's a sequence in which the projects need to be completed. And because the water reliability plan is also tied to a consent decree with the state, we are obligated to maintain that schedule. So we do really need to be cognizant of the schedule in which the slope stability project takes place. But we can bring more information about that on February 28th. We definitely understand that this is a tremendous concern for the community. Are there any impacts to Lake Carnegie at this time? Lisa, do you want to take that one? Oh, maybe she hopped off.
Oh, I'm still here. So
Oh, sorry, I
go
can't
back
see
and
you.
forth my screen. I know. Sorry. I don't believe so. I mean, we've been working on a program to remove and eradicate invasives around the trees, or I'm sorry, around the pond. But this is one of those opportunities that we can replant and something that can come up in discussions, during that charrette. So I'm excited about possibilities. But right now, from an engineering perspective, I can't answer that. I know there is some issues over there, but that's not related to the reservoir in question now.
Thank you. And Stephanie, thank you for this comment on the bald eagles. We'll take a look at that to confirm that we're not impacting any of their nesting or impacting them in any way. And Corey, thank you for making yourself available for the February 28th meeting. Looks like you're also planning to attend the community council meeting on the 19th. Before we wrap up, Corey, is there anything that you would like to add on behalf of the mayor's office?
Not on my part. I'm still learning, so I really appreciate, you all giving me the space to catch up on everything that's been happening for the past few years. But I plan to go back and make sure everybody knows all of your concerns, and I took really good notes tonight. So just happy to be a part of the conversation.
Thanks, Corey. And we're really glad that you're here and appreciate you making the time for this meeting this evening. All right. It looks like we have gotten through all of the questions and have definitely heard some themes in which the community would like more information on and opportunities to discuss when we move to the design workshop on the 28th. And those are, it's obviously more conversation around the landscaping, ideas around the types of plants you would want to see at those different zones that Zach shared. The fence and walking paths are also a high priority for everyone, as are the scheduling of when the trees will be felled to try to balance and not impact nesting season. and I think we also want to have a discussion around, like what happens outside of the property line of the reservoir, knowing that there is just so much interest within the park, within Heth's Valley. The design workshop can hold space to look at areas outside of the perimeter of Pittsburgh Waters project. Our focus from Pittsburgh Waters perspective, our focus will be on the slope stability project, the reservoir. But just knowing that this is a more holistic conversation and a more holistic public place, we can't have that conversation in isolation, and really the other areas of the park and of the community need to be talked about together. We'll take those comments and then pass the baton on to whoever is going to pick those up. But we do want to make that opportunity available to you when we have that larger conversation at the end of the month. Just some next steps. We've talked a lot about the February 28th meeting. Please, the form is open for to RSVP. If you haven't done so, please do so. We ask that RSVPs are submitted by February 23rd. The community input that we're receiving, that'll be incorporated into the 90% design that we will be discussing with the DEP at the end of March. That is a pre-application review. Nothing will be finalized at that point. I think we would want to come back to the Highland Park Community Council to just share what our discussions with the DEP and how things are progressing before we submit the final design at the end of May. So there will be the February 28th touch point, and then I think a follow-up conversation with the community council after we have our initial discussion with the DEP. So I thank everybody for sticking with us. There are a lot of great questions here and good conversation and good ideas. And I hope everybody has a great evening. And we'll see you next time at the end of the month.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Stephanie, do you want to stay on at all? Or Zach, do you want to stay on?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, thanks.
And the opportunity to talk more with my friend.
Thanks, everyone.
So how's everybody feeling?
Let's let everyone hop off first.
I'm sorry?
Let's let everyone hop off first. We got some stragglers on here.
Oh, okay. I cannot see the attendance.
Yeah, we still got 15 in here.
Oh, jeez.
I think we can kick them out. I don't know.
I think we can.
So Sabrina C is on our board, so you should.
Okay.
Sabrina.
Okay. Whoops.
Same thing with Elizabeth Hutton.
All right, Elizabeth. So Andrew, I will put him in the waiting room.
Oh, and there's Christine. Hi, Christine.
All right, Christine, Elizabeth, John Ross, put him in the waiting room.
Donna's Arcadis.
Oh, did I kick someone out who I shouldn't have?
Yeah, John Ross.
Oh,
No.
all right. I'll put him back
He's
in.
with Arcadis.
Okay. John Straight. Catherine Smith.
Sometimes you walk away from your meeting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Lloyd Lopez. All right, and Sabrina's on your board?
Yep.
Okay. So we have Rebecca, Marie's with me, Barry, Christine, Stephanie, Zach, Elizabeth, and Sabrina. Okay. And John Ross doesn't look like he's coming, but he's trying to join. All right. So how's everybody feeling about this?
It went well. Some things we can definitely work with. Some things that we're gonna have to nip in the bud. But definitely a lot of input that we can work with, especially around the trail access, around the rear and the fence location. And the bird species was something hadn't all thought about. I'm sure we can write something in the specs to like limit tree clearing during that spring and early summer, and look at the phasing a little bit closer. But
I suggest that we bring an ecologist on board to just tell us what, what we're dealing with that, because it's complicated.
mhm,
And that way we could have somebody up there who is an expert in that.
yeah, it's a good idea.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I'm curious, Zach, you said there are some things that need to be nipped in the bud, and I'm just really curious what
Yeah, I
you're
don't know what I
thinking.
meant by that either. Thanks for calling me out. I guess the walking trail on top of the crest, like on the pavement, is something that I don't think we can work with. Um, there's so much like monitoring equipment and the pumps
Mhm.
facilities and stuff up there, and
And we have made those requests before for Heron, for Highland, and for Landper, and the universal response was that we cannot allow those perimeter asphalt pathways to be on the unprotected side from the fence. So
Right. But, and I guess, can you just explain to me so I understand why we can do that at the other reservoir, at the uncovered reservoir?
that's only because the uncovered reservoir has been grandfathered in because of all the entanglements. But they said if they would ever had, they don't have to deal with now, but if they had a second bite at the apple, they would have never allowed. What they were trying to do, if you recall, was they wanted us to put the fence on the outside of the asphalt. It was supposed to be 10 foot tall with triple strand concert barbed wire. So we got away from that only by the enhanced chemical monitoring that we put on the front end of the MFP, and we put in 36, 32. I can't remember the exact number, but it's over 30 monitoring cameras that had to be monitored 24/7.
I have a bunch of I was taking some notes, and I have a bunch of different points that we can hit, and I think Rebecca, you did a pretty good job of listing a bunch of those. Some of these though might need a walk with the team to make sure that we know kind of what's happening. And I think the part that's the hardest for everybody to visualize is how steep those slopes are, and if there's any possibility of walking around it outside the secure area. And even when we go out, we're going to be looking at it as it is now, not as it's going to be. So we might want to think about how to, like, if we're out there, do we take some surveyor's tape and just, simulate something and take a photo of it for people? Or, like, I don't know what our burden of proof is, but just for us to understand what our possibilities might be. So
And I know when we talked about landscaping around the pump station, we talked about, like, can we do a trail sort of behind the pump station that then drops down into S Run? And so, having that option out on the table so people see that, I don't know, that there is ways to do some connectivity to like the rest of the park. Even if they can't walk right at the reservoir. We have the other reservoir to walk at, which is uncovered. Why you want to walk around the ugly covered reservoir, I don't know. But is there anything that can be done to like make the covered reservoir less hideous? Because you're still going to see it. Like, I can see it when I walk now around the other reservoir because the trees are bare, so I can look down and see this ugly cover. I don't know what that would be. Nicer covers.
I was thinking neon lights and some messages,
You could pay local artists to paint the cover.
A mural.
Yeah, that would never work.
Okay, just while we're going there, if we sold the rights to that, seeing that from the sky, like somebody would pay for
So I
that.
tried to get Bob Weimer to bite on we could have funded part of the cover. There is a company, Layfield, that will put on sports logos. So they actually did a mock-up of the Penguins and the Steelers logos on the reservoir. I'm sure nobody would have loved that, but it would have funded part of the
Is there,
project. So
like, I don't know if this would be allowed by regulations, but I can imagine like a cover for the cover, right? Like even solar panels would be more attractive than the cover that's there now.
You guys
right?
looked at
So,
solar
like,
panels, right?
Right. So like, is there anything that can be done? Again, I don't want to see a sports logo, but
Understood. That was mostly said in jest, but we did comment on it back in the day. So we have evaluated for the reservoirs, the floating covers with the solar panels on top of, and it becomes incredibly costly. Yes, you are getting a rebate with regards to the power you're generating on it, but over the life cycle of the infrastructure, the solar panels are far better off on a solid surface than they are on a floating cover. What they do is get a harmonic that's forming in the reservoir. So we did look at it, but it wasn't deemed to be tenable for that location.
I would
And
think that as you, what's the lifespan for that for that cover, Barry? It just got put on, right?
well, it just got put on in 2021, 2022, I think at the end. So yeah, there is a total lifespan expected as long as you're maintaining them, which we are now, 25 years, plus or minus. Some are saying 20 years is what they're seeing with the Hypalon material, but that's the best material for a flexible reservoir cover because of its resilience to chlorine. Um, so we'll see.
So we're 5 years into it. Lots changes in the next 15 years. I think that is a
Yeah,
perfect possibility, and especially with regards to solar and technologies, the world's going to be a different place in 15 years. So um, that seems like something
agree.
to revisit.
And the other thing that we're considering, just so everyone knows, so the cover that or the tank that we're talking about for Highland One is likely to be a steel tank. Um, could be glass lined, could be other, but it's going to be a tank itself. It's no longer going to be these reservoirs with flexible covers. It's just the cost, expense, and operational considerations that are necessary to maintain them is just so much worse than a tank, solid wall tank itself. So, like I said in the chat, we're looking at a potential that at a proper elevation for the hydraulic grade, that a buried tank, such that you could put park amenities, other, I think Baltimore and some other larger cities have been putting like sports, like soccer fields on top or amphitheater type of setups, different ways of being able to disguise it, but sit right within a park setting.
And
Barry,
go ahead. Yeah.
have you ever gone through underground storage tank permitting? I know, isn't that like a no-go anymore?
No, there are ways of just like we're
Okay.
doing for the clear well, there are ways
Yeah.
that you can expose sides of the tank,
Clear
but
well,
you
yeah.
can cover them. So it'd just be a mural, basically the way a lot of these jurisdictions are utilizing it as a mural on the side, and then on top is functional facilities. But that's down the road. So maybe by the time 20 years from now, the flexible cover might be able to go away, and we have tanks there. We'll see.
for the addressing the eyesore of the existing cover, would it be
Yes.
possible to consider, and I don't know the engineering, so I don't expect an answer at this moment, but like at the fence line, something that's a visual barrier, right? Either again, plants, mural, something else, so that again, the line of sight isn't at the cover. Again, from the places, again, obviously the people in the apartment building, they're out of luck. But if you're walking on the street or walking on the trails up like on in the other part of Highland Park, something to think about.
Yeah,
Something
so
to be
just
considered.
the style of fence, if it's completely solid, you can't see through it, or if you have like a decorative, like it's there now. It's a good point.
Yeah.
Something for them to comment on what they would prefer, I guess.
Yep.
We'll have to have a conversation with Casey and Tunde to talk through what they're considering for the fence.
We have
And
a call next week that I will forward the invite to you right now.
thank you.
Barry, are you on that call too?
I believe I am.
Okay.
If not, can you please forward it to me?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think tonight was a good start and good comments. And so, Christine, we have a series of meetings scheduled to start with the planning of the February 28th meeting. So I'm sure we'll be coming up with some ideas and a structure for how to facilitate that discussion.
Yeah, and we have, what's the max people we can have at Tree Pittsburgh?
I need to double check, but I think it's like around 75.
Okay.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I don't know what you're preparing for the event itself, but it might be helpful to put stuff online for people to look at ahead of time, right? Since it's only a 2-hour window. So, and again, not everybody will do it, but if they could see, I don't know, plant options or, you know, those types of things.
Yeah, we're gonna sit down and compile a list of documents to put online. I think it's probably a good next step.
Yeah. Maybe we can work with GIS to put together like a story map of this project. That might help people visualize it.
Yeah. You could, if you did that, you could easily, it just easily recreates everything y'all did today. So that's a great idea, Rebecca. And we can put some, input points just the same way you did as well. So.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for doing such a good job. Like you covered, you know, I sent you that email, Rebecca, because I don't know why someone thought that the presentation you gave at the Nagley Run meeting was the presentation you were going to give here. And I was like, oh, like I found that hard to believe because I know we've talked about this like for months now. So you guys did a great job and you explained things really clearly and try to answer all the questions. So, you know, I appreciate that. And I'm sure the community appreciates it too.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that. Thank you. Yeah, Zach, you did a really nice job going through all the materials.
Thank you.
And
I was a little worried, but I feel good about
You
it.
handled yourself very well.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, way to like pretend you're colorblind because you didn't know the map.
I am colorblind. Very colorblind. I use that crutch when I can.
Well, thank you guys for paving the way. Stephanie, your intro goes a long way to building trust for the Pittsburgh Water team. So.
Yeah.
Good. Well, again, I just never know what to expect.
Yeah.
And I just
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for laying down the ground rules. And that was really helpful. And I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And yeah, let me know if you want to meet again with me before the February 28th event. And
yeah.
And if I'm not registered, like let me know. Like I think I am.
We'll double check to see who all is coming.
All right. Well, thanks so much. Have a great night.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, you guys too. Thanks so much. Thanks, Christine.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Good night.
Bye-bye.